A couple of things. What could be worse than watching the press carry on about, oh, the Lakers, it's a 3-year process. And it's like, when did anybody give the Cavaliers a 3-year process? When LeBron came back, they gotta win now! They gotta win now! No. When was there any sympathy from the goddamn media about a 3-year plan for the Cleveland Cavaliers? When? The answer is never.
Nope.
We were on alert from the minute LeBron came of 2 things. 1, gotta win now. And 2, he's leaving soon. Those were the 2 things that we were made aware of.
Oh,
no, I'm being serious. It was like, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. And we're all, oh, LeBron's coming home. LeBron's coming home. And ESPN is, so how long do you think he stays before he leaves? It's like, fuck me in the ass, why don't you? Just fuck me in the ass. I mean, this is ridiculous. And now all of a sudden, it's like Magic Johnson, and flatulence is not part of HIV, but when he farts, it's Beethoven. It's like they just signed Michael Beasley in a 1-year deal. Oh, that's great! Michael Beasley! Yeah. Lance Stevenson. Oh, God. What a great sign. Rajon Rondo. Oh, my God. He's awesome.
It's like they're trying to compare them to, like, on side by side to LeBron as if he's going to bring their true talents out. I don't know. That's the only thing I'm guessing from it, Well,
no, I mean, what they're saying about Rondo is it's just absolutely hilarious. It's like, well, Rondo's an elder statesman, and he'll be able to groom Lonzo Ball. It's like, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, he did a real great job for Ben McLemore in Sacramento. Fuck you. Rajon Rondo cares about nobody but himself. That's why
it's always been that way.
Oh, my God. The Celtics were none too pleased to get rid of him.
Yeah.
He was a pain in the ass. And that's when he could play. I mean, now, it's like he's going to get out there and he's going to say, I can pass as good as Lonzo and I can shoot as bad as Lonzo. So I'm right here. I should be playing. You see, all of this now is just going to be, well, what great deals, But it doesn't really matter, you see. What I found out today on First Take on ESPN, what I found out was it doesn't really matter, because Magic's not afraid of Golden State because he's got time.
Yep.
He's got time. And, they have time. They can set up and find out who they want to keep this year. And even if they don't win, it's not that big a deal because you're going to get the second superstar next year, and the guys who don't perform will be gone, and they'll trade them to unfortunate teams, and they'll get other players. And in 2 to 3 years, they'll be right there. And this has got nothing to do with we got to beat the Warriors, we got to win a title. It has nothing to do with that. You know what it has to do with?
What?
We've got to resuscitate the Los Angeles basketball market for the league. That's what it is. 100%. And if we're setting up the Lakers to be a really good basketball team for the next 10 years, that's the way the NBA wants it.
Yeah.
It does not make any difference whether they win right now or not.
I've said this since day one.
Fossilized asshole back on TV.
Wait, one at a time. Brian first.
I said, and to put the fossilized assholes of Hollywood back on TV.
Well, it's a high-profile city, and that's what they need. And it's been so bad there for so long now that it's like, and you can't keep talking about Kobe and Shaq. You can't keep talking about that. You got to have something new to talk about. So this is what we have, and it really isn't very good. This team isn't that good. And you know something? LeBron James going to get a rocking chair. LeBron James is where his business interests are, where his son can go to a good high school and become a groomed basketball player. And he can get his 26 a night and he can put on a show for the people in LA. But you know something? When the Lakers said, nah, it's a 3-year plan, LeBron's going to be 37. And you know something? Good for him. Good for him. Take the money and run. $153 million. Spend it out your ass. The fact of the matter is, it's all scripted. This is all to make that city viable again within the league, and there is no pressure on them. Other teams like Cleveland have to win now. Look at the Toronto Raptors. It's sad. It's sad. I mean, Toronto's a great town. I used to visit Toronto all the fucking time. Really a wonderful town. But you know something? They started losing in the playoffs, and they had to do something. They had to do something. So the goddamn general manager says to DeMar DeRozan in the summer league just recently, here's what we have to do together to make this thing better. A week later, he's fucking traded. I mean, what a fucking asshole that is. And then you bring in Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard says, I don't want to play in Toronto. And I'm not going to stay in Toronto. And you can't make me neener. I'm going to, I love LA. So that Magic Johnson's sitting there saying, yeah, you see, that's how it works. You know, we'll slowly but surely get better. It's part of the 3-year plan. And meanwhile, what happens to Toronto? They just gave away DeMar DeRozan for a 1-year rental, and then they go in a total rebuild. And they... Because the league doesn't give a shit about Toronto. They don't give a shit about Cleveland. They don't give a shit about any of these cities because they're not marketing cities for the league. That's all that matters to them.
Preach.
No, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, that's what that's the market that they want. And New York is going to be next. I don't know how they're going to do that. I was and at this point, while I'm talking about the NBA, I was right again about Michael Porter Jr. Oh, what a wild guess. Hoo-ah. We'll do a little bit of Al Pacino. Like, that was not a predictable outcome. Yeah. Second back surgery. I told you it would happen. Did I think it was going to happen this quick? It's possible. And you want to know what the beautiful part of it is? They're lying to you again. I'm going to come out and tell you the truth again, and you won't fucking believe me. The only thing I'm sorry about is that the Knicks didn't go ahead and draft Porter Jr. That would have set the organization back 5 more years. Fuck New York. Yeah. Fuck that city. Filthy piece of shit. Fuck it. Oh, that's talked about way too fucking much. Too fucking much.
If Toronto was smart, they should have kept DeRozan that had 3 years left on his deal, and they could have lured in a possible free agent like Kyrie Irving to go over there and go play with them, or maybe get in Carmelo on a 1-year rental, or just something. It would be better than what they're doing now.
Well, I mean, but no, it's suicide now because they've got nothing, and they've given away a guy, and they've gotten basically a 1-year rental, and that's it because nobody gives a shit about the city. But again, the league only cares about what it cares about, and anything that gets in its way, it doesn't really matter in the end. Toronto's headed for a rebuild. Cleveland is headed for a rebuild, and and nobody really gives a shit. You know what's amazing? You have a guy like Giannis, who's this great young player, but nobody talks about Milwaukee because it's the home of Laverne and Shirley. Folks, they give you a tour of the Schatz Beer Factory. The league doesn't give a shit about Milwaukee.
Preach.
I mean, that's why you don't hear anything about them. I mean, don't you think that a guy like Giannis, who is a freak, that's what they call him, he's the freak, that they would have, by this time, been able to get players to help him? The team's getting worse. The team's getting fucking worse. How can that be that they have a legitimate superstar and the team is getting worse? And the answer is it's not part of the league script. Nobody cares about that city either. Fuck them.
Did y'all guys see that ridiculous trade yesterday with Melo? It said like breaking news, Melo traded the Hawks, but then when you go and read it, they're like, oh, the Hawks took his contract, released him, gave up Schroeder, and gave up Muscala, who is argumentatively their 2 best players on the team. Granted, Schroeder wanted to be traded because he was supposedly cancer in the locker room. So what Atlanta did was they catered to the short midget's request traded their 2 best players away, got nothing in return except for a 2022 protected first-round draft pick they can't use for 4 years, plus Justin Anderson, who I don't see any greatness coming in return. So you screwed your whole franchise up because one little midget wanted to get traded. And the NBA allowed it because Atlanta is not a marketable franchise. Like,
nobody cares. I mean, now you know why Budenholzer always looked like he was crying. I mean, for God's sake, yeah. I mean, it's like you have your chance. All right, back when they had Teague and they had that group of people, right? They had that group, and it failed. All right. You know, it's funny they talk about the one and done in college basketball. This is the real one and done, folks. You get one chance at the brass ring, and if you don't get it done, man, you're gone. Your franchise is eviscerated.
Well, look at the Magic since Penny Hardaway left the team.
Little Penny.
I just sit through that asshole in Phoenix.
I mean, franchises just disappear, and it's amazing because even when an organization, you know, like Milwaukee, like I said, I mean, it's incredible. They have this great player, and there's just no interest in building that franchise. There seem to be what happens is, and I think Philadelphia will be the next team like this, is they'll get to a point where there's X good enough, and that's good enough for the league, and it's a hell of a lot better than what it was in Philadelphia. And the process is a dead end. It will be a lot like Oklahoma City, who loses.
They'll be in the same position that they were with Barkley from 86 to
right. They'll be good, and they'll get into the playoffs, and that'll placate the people in Philadelphia. And it's going to be like that in Indiana. And I mean, what the fuck? Indiana is still looking for the end of days. I mean, they've got a Bible shoved halfway up their ass. These people here don't even expect that they'll even be alive for the next basketball season, let alone see a championship. And so getting Victor Oladipo and getting that team, that's good enough for Indiana. If they're going to make playoffs, that's good enough for them, you know? And if a team like Detroit can slide in, that's good enough for them. Or, you know, or if Miami can slide back in because Spoelstra, you know, because he has all this intelligence and the moles on his face, whatever the situation is, that's good enough for Miami. And that's the way the league looks at things. It's like, and then those teams will eventually fade away and become bargain basement teams, like has happened to Cleveland now and will happen to Toronto. And they'll just become the new horrible teams. And then Brooklyn, I really question that whole organization, but they will next year, by the way, have the ability to bring in 2 max contracts next year, just so that you're keeping track. Wow. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody wants to go there necessarily, but that is one New York team. And if the Knicks, you know, if it's not the Knicks because Dolan doesn't sell the team, then it will be the Brooklyn Nets, who they'll try to revive New York, like they tried to revive Los Angeles with the Clippers by bringing in a billionaire owner, you know, deep pockets, right?
No.
Yeah, but they never cared about the Clippers either. Not really. Not really. I mean, it's the Lakers they wanted. That's the Showtime organization. So, you know, that's what's happening here. And it's just so bogus, you know.
Yep. I had some of my subscribers tell me, they're like, you know, the Lakers in Boston, they're trying to make them a Trump term great again. And they're like, now New York's going to be next because they're another big market franchise. And maybe Chicago, they'll try to revive them, you know, make them similar to 96 Bulls or something.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
The league could actually contract by like 8 teams and actually be better.
Yep. Here goes the rest of us. We'll all be sitting here like this. It's time for the NBA draft in 2025, and we're all sitting here like this. And the first pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Howard Dumbo from Clown University. And he's like, and we're all just sitting here like, oh, God, here goes another 10-win season again.
Well, I'll tell you. The NBA, yeah, is a waste of time. And, you know, the thing is that the only real interest, and it was interesting because I think a lot of this has to do with millennials. I really do, because the younger fans are really more interested in the social media aspects. They're more interested in the players than they are the teams.
Yeah.
Popularity of the sport is more ruled by television ratings and the big name players and the endorsements that go with those players, the Uncle Drew movies and all that, than it is with any notion of having any kind of parity within the league. And there are no, with the internet and all, there's really no hometown favoritism amongst the fans. Everyone came on board when LeBron came back to Cleveland, and now a lot of them have just gone to Los Angeles to cheer them on. And this is what the NBA is marketing to, and it's too bad because it's
which goes back to what I was saying months ago, is that they need a hard cap, so all this shit comes to an end. But I don't know if it's going to mess with their money, if it's going to mess with their bottom line if they do that.
The league's making money. I mean, the bottom line is it's a business, and the league's doing well. The television ratings are good, and they're making a lot of money, and they're happy with it.
But it's also from an entertainment standpoint, it's not fun,
Well, especially it's not fun if you live in 25 of the cities.
I mean, not only like before the season even starts, we already know Golden State's going to win. So like, what's even the point of playing the season? Why don't you just go straight to the finals and just draw a name from the hat from the East and see which one pops out?
I think it's all about establishing names. I think if you have a Donovan Mitchell and you start, milking that name and getting it out in the public. And so we're trying to create a series of stars, and that's enough to motivate the fans who are watching that sport. And I think that's just the way the business works. And there is no pressure on the NBA to make this a parity league or to make this a competitive league. It's more, you tell me. I mean, there's no real backlash against the Warriors. There's no backlash against any of these teams who have become super teams. None.
Yep.
So there's no downside if you are in a big market to play that kind of game. There's no problem with it.
So, Mr. Wood, do you see in 2021, do you see the next collective bargaining agreement is then, do you see them raising the cap to where the luxury tax, or do you see them creating some sort of hard cap, or do you see them tweaking that? Or
there's no way they're going to a hard cap. I mean, there are owners who are willing to pay the luxury tax, and basically it's welfare. It gets redistributed around the league. And, the fact of the matter is that losing is obviously not that painful to organizations like the Sacramento Kings. They just learn to accept that's their lot in life. And if they can get a little bit of winnings from the bigger picture, so be it. And we just keep on cheering teams to spend more money so that more money gets floated around the rest of the league. This is kind of the way it works. And the league is happy to have that overage as well. But the teams, the cities themselves, and the organizations have accepted the fact that they're not going to be very good. Just the way that it is. And no, I don't think that it's really all that fan-friendly for my generation. My generation doesn't matter. It's the upcoming generation, and they like it the way it is. They're happy with it.
But I mean, out of every sport, though, NBA is like the worst sport in terms of parity. Like if you go to any other sport, sometimes you'll have 8 or 9 teams in the mix. Even in baseball, you got 15 teams, 16 teams still in the mix right now. I mean, I know they have a larger season, but it draws more interest at this time of the year. But for basketball, it's like 10 games in the season. It's like, okay, he's the number 1 seed, he's the number 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed. You feel like you're formed with those same teams, and I guarantee you 7 out of 8 of those will stay the same.
Yeah, well, it's not. Well, how is it different than college football? You look at the college football, the preseason polls, it's been the same 8 teams at the top for like 10 years in a row.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you look at it, it's not just the NBA. It's fucking amateur sports. It's fucking college sports.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's just the way everything has become, and everything's static and status quo, and we don't care about this shit anymore. The worst part of it is we don't care about anything anyway. It's like they just did a poll. 28% of millennials say they're going to vote in the 2018 midterm elections. 28%. You know something? Fuck them. Fuck them.
I agree.
The bottom line is that when you stop giving a shit, that's when the hands are all in the till. Here's a headline from Cleveland.com. Did the Cavaliers fail by winning only one title in 11 years of LeBron James? Well, I have a better question. Is it possible that the person who wrote that headline and wrote this particular article could be dead of cancer next year? you know, what kind of, that's the nostalgic view from the lake. It's like, we failed 10 out of the 11 years. That would be exactly what these self-loathing Northeast Ohio press people would write. God only knows. I want my teams to get better. I want the Indians to get better. I don't want them to trade away all their young players to do it. But this is, they forced themselves so that they had to make the trade. So they made the trade. That's it. That's what it is. It's no more. It's no less. So
what do you see coming out of the East? Is it Boston? Does anybody else have an objection to that?
No, an objection. I mean, they were handed it when they were handed Gordon Hayward, who they didn't know was going to wreck his leg, and Kyrie Irving. But the only thing that's going to keep, it's like who shot JR. The only thing that, during rerun season, that's how they kept Dallas as a popular show, because everybody was waiting to find out.
That should be our new pastime. Shooting J.R. Smith. Yes.
Oh, wrong JR. But yeah, you bring up a good point. I want him to go to Los Angeles so he can team with Michael Beasley and drive LeBron absolutely crazy. That would be my choice. But, this is how they kept interest in television programs during rerun season. This is what the NBA is too. It's, is Kyrie going to re-sign with the Celtics? That'll all start too. Is he going to go to New York? And that's what the speculative press and the speculative.
Some of them have already started that. Why Kyrie shouldn't re-sign with the Celtics?
That's right. Look, this is the same press that we're dealing with on our political front. Well, our country it goes down the shitter. This is the speculative press, and that seems to be the way to keep people fascinated, interested, and involved. Is by writing these articles that are pure guesswork that have absolutely no basis at all in fact. It's just, rumor, innuendo. That seems to be all there is. And the league fuels itself, and the NBA is perfect because that's how they use their off season, is with all this free agency bullshit. And that's how they keep interest in the league when they're not playing the game. So the way football does it is with the combine, with the draft, with a preseason that nobody wants to play, that injures people and shortens people's lives. That's the way they do it. At Major League Baseball, they don't really have to worry about it because the season goes fucking on forever anyway, and by the end of it, everyone's sick of it.
Seems like a double-bladed sword no matter what sport you enter.
It's just the way it is, man. It's just the way it is.
It's just one big giant guillotine.
How so?
We're just all waiting to get our heads cut off.
Do you think millennials kind of screwed up the NBA in terms of I know the NBA is marketing towards the millennials, sort of like individually pursuing players as opposed to, the team from a team base. Do you think millennials, in fact, kind of share a bit of that responsibility, a bit of that blame?
No, I just think that it's the way the country is evolving. No more than, if you really want me to be honest about Donald Trump, putting my personal feelings about the man aside and just looking at him as a political animal and not looking at him as a businessman before he was a political animal, I would say that he's played it like a virtuoso. That he said the things that people wanted to hear, and he chose a time when people were willing to hear words spoken that were cutting, that were angry, that were belittling, and thrived on them. We found a point in time where we like to vilify certain things and certain people. It worked. And that's what politics, and I've always said about politics, it's the reason I'm not involved in politics, it's all about winning. When Bill Clinton won the presidency, what people would say to me is, well, are you happy now? And I said, no, it's not that I'm happy. It's that he won. He did what he went up and made a fool of himself playing a saxophone on a late night television program and tried to humanize himself and do this and do that. And he won. That's what the name of the game is. And all the NBA is doing is marketing to the group of people, and that's what they like. That's all Vince McMahon is doing in the WWE. He's just marketing to people and the changing current of the way that people feel. And that's what Donald Trump has tapped into. And give him credit for that. When he says, I am a stable genius, I just, kind of, you say, wow, who says that? But I'll tell you one thing. He certainly has his finger on the pulse of what drives those people who still vote to the polls. He has his finger on that pulse. And the league has its finger on that pulse.
Sounds like we're watching an episode of NBA Housewives.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is where we are right now. And, it's like the NFL. And this whole anthem thing is not an issue, should never have been an issue, has nothing to do with football, has nothing to do with anything. And the fact of the matter is they've made it into a bigger thing that it should have been, and now nobody can back their way out of it. And look, the bottom line is this. Let them kneel and let them play. Look, if you're going to let them get brain damage, let them kneel. And you know something? The players aren't going to do anything else except kneel, and it will be forgotten. So help me, the one thing that I've learned, and I'm going to tell you a story that is not a very flattering story, and it's not a very flattering story about the NAACP. The NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of, colored people. We don't call them that anymore, but God forbid we would, we get shot. But that organization, when they would start up with radio stations because of inadequate minority hiring, first of all, I never had the problem, but there are a lot of people in the country who were taken to task, especially in major metropolitan markets where minority populations were higher. But one of the things that people found out very quickly is if you responded to them, you were in trouble. But if you ignored them, they went away. Because there would always be somebody who'd get into a fight with them and they'd draw all their attention to the people who were fighting and arguing. And if you just left them alone, they'd forget about you. And that's how I feel about the anthem thing. It's like, let them kneel. Let them kneel. It's, let it go. It's not a big deal because when no one talks about it anymore and it just becomes not shown on television, if they don't point the cameras at the guys doing this during the national anthem and drawing the attention to it, they'll stop doing it. Because
it's peaceful
publicity. It's not for any great love of caring or if they really cared about this issue during this offseason, we'd be hearing about 500 football players who were really doing something about this. But no, we haven't heard shit. We haven't heard shit. And that's because the games aren't being played. They go away.
Make them walk through, if they care so goddamn much, make them walk through goddamn Southwest Chicago with no bodyguards, no NFL protection, no bullshit.
Well, I feel the same way about the owners. Else. I think the owners should shut the fuck up about politics. Shut the fuck up. If we don't have to hear this nonsense, we don't equate it to our sports and it goes away. It loses the interest. But you see, even the NFL can't get out of the way of this social media thing. And now the game's not being played, but we're going to resurrect the anthem issue. And it's like, it's a big fucking mistake because it's a turn off and it makes me totally disinterested in the whole thing. Has nothing to do with the game whatsoever. But if the owners were smart, if they have a pro-patriotic view of life and they have a Republican view of life, God bless them. They're free to believe what they want to believe. They'd be smart if they just ignored the players and let them do their silly little thing. And then they would be forgotten when
and it also gets perpetuated by the bobbleheads.
Who are the bobbleheads?
Shannon Sharp and the other asshole. All of those bobbleheads that are on the 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah, but the
ESPN
media
and FS1 and
the only reason they're talking
CNN.
about it is they can generate ratings, Brian. That's all they care about. I come from that industry. It's all about ratings. You say the most ridiculous things that you can say, and that's how you get ratings. It's how big is Kim Kardashian's ass? It's ratings.
Is this the NFL's way of trying to compete with the NBA, like the LeVar deal? So they're like, oh, we're going to do the national anthem deal. So this kind of goes hand in hand.
Seems to have been resurrected again somehow, and the thing is all it took is one guy saying, well, I'm just going to kneel, and it blows up all over again. The NFL's like, hey, they're talking about us. Hey, not even August, and they're talking about us. Get a load out of that,
And then some asshole will bring up Kaepernick again. Why isn't Kaepernick in the league?
And
Because he sucks.
It's so far gone.
The fuck hard. He sucks, and he's fucking a goddamn communist. You're done. Goodbye. Get out of my country.
But he's forgotten. I mean, and it's like, just like everything would be forgotten if they just shut the fuck up and play the game. And Shannon Sharp or whoever, or, Skip Bayless or whoever, would stop talking about it if it just wasn't shown on television. And nobody knew which players did and which players didn't. It wouldn't be an issue. It wouldn't be a ticking time bomb anymore, and nobody would give a fuck. And there would be no ratings in it, so they'd have to find something else to talk about. And what they would talk about is, Kawhi Leonard's going to fuck Toronto and go to Los Angeles. They'll always find something to talk about, but geez, let's play the football games and let's not focus on this silly shit. It's foolishness.
I agree. Ever since NFL brought politics into their game, it's made it so less interesting. But the fact is, you're catering to the Kim Kardashian fans of the marketing, in terms of the fan base there, and they like that kind of stuff. But guys like me, I just want to watch football on Sundays. I don't care about the politics of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's David Gregory saying the players should not even be out there. I mean, and again, this kind of rhetoric only furthers the cause of why what we should be talking about is the games. We shouldn't be talking about this foolishness. I mean,
one of my subscribers told me just let them kneel and whatever happens to them happens. Meaning, if they lose endorsements or like Brandon Marshall did on the Broncos or whatever happens to them happens. Like, that's the risk you take. Like, it's your freedom of speech to kneel, but then it's everybody's freedom of speech of how they respond to that financially, right? So,
no, I mean, but again, if nobody talked about it, the players wouldn't get the satisfaction out of this. No. And somebody has to be smart enough at the ownership level to have been able to figure this out, but nobody has. So.
But Mr. Ruhead, if their bottom line is being affected, if the ratings are going down since the kneeling and everything, and fans are not coming, don't you think it is kind of the NFL's responsibility to have some sort of policy in place to say, like, okay, hey, look, we're losing a lot of money out of this. We need to do something.
But, the NFL hasn't even gotten a cogent policy about people who punch women or people who beat up people and people who are assault or people who are criminals. The NFL hasn't been very good at imposing policy on any level, let alone free speech issues. I don't want the NFL legislating free speech issues. Just let it die. Let it go away. I would like to see the NFL put its foot down against the Jameis Winstons of the world and the people who are repeat offenders of crimes. I would like to see the NFL put its foot down in those regards. Abusive patterns of behavior, violent off the field issues. Those are the types of things. And we get 1 game or 2 game or 3 game suspensions. I'd like them to be looking into that a lot harder than the marijuana issue. I think the violence issue is a much bigger problem for them. But now, legislating things, let's be honest about it. I don't want the league intervening. And the owners are a bunch of dicks. Let me tell you that. They're a bunch of fucking dicks. I don't want them legislating free speech issues either. Just ignore it. Just ignore it. I'm Jewish. Now, I'm not a practicing Jew, but I had to sit there on television many decades ago and watch neo-Nazis choose Skokie, Illinois, which is a Jewish suburb outside of Chicago, to do their Holocaust denial walk. All right. They chose the most inflammatory place that they could have gone to deliver that message. And people said to me, how could you tolerate that? And it's like you ignore it because there's not that many of those people, and they want the attention. They're looking for the headlines. They're no different than those crazy people from the Westboro Baptist Church. They show up at people's funerals and make these horrible God hates faggots kind of comments and all of that. Those people are just looking for headlines. And when you ignore them, you don't hear about them anymore. Where's the Westboro Baptist Church? You don't hear about it anymore because it's not worthy of being spoken about. And there are some things that are like that. We made the mistake with the goddamn war statues here in the South. We made that mistake, and we played that whole thing up and it got all blown out. What do you hear about it now? You hear about nothing. And it's all just news cycle. And you ignore these things, and quite honestly, there's not enough momentum to keep these people going.
Should Jameis Winston be kicked out of the league? I know you brought his name up. Do you think you said repeat offenders? I heard you mention something about that.
I think he should have been suspended for the season, and then the next one gone for good. Yep. He shouldn't even have been in the league in the first place because of the whole college thing. That whole thing was just swept under the rug. The guy has been pampered, and it's wrong. And privilege, whether it's Bill Cosby, if it's a black man privilege, or if it's a white man privilege, where wealthy people are able to escape justice, I'm against it. And it doesn't matter what color they are. And the fact of the matter is, how many chances has Jameis Winston got, and he still managed to fuck it up? You take this away from him, and you take his pay away from him for the fucking year too. You say, God damn it, this is the way it's going to work. And let them go to court if they want to go to court about it. But the fact is, no pay, one season. You either come back a better citizen, and if you do it again, you're out of the league for good. You can play in fucking Canada with Johnny Manziel on the bench. You can sit with him. Got no tolerance for this. But, those are the things that should be legislated. That's what the league should be concerned about, not a bunch of guys kneeling on the sidelines. It's just not important.
You're right. There's more important issues.
My God. And the kneeling thing will go away, but these goddamn violence issues are not going to go away because it's unfortunately become a part of the culture of the goddamn game. It's what college players are allowed to do because their colleges don't want to pay them, but God damn it, they'll let them commit crimes on campus. God only knows, to keep that income revenue coming in. Pathetic.
Well, and that's shit that comes out in high schools too.
Oh yeah, it's all part of the machine.
Worst fucking shit that happened at my high school was football and baseball players.
Well, I mean, I remember when Willie Spencer played for Massillon High School, and the Massillon-McKinley game was the biggest at the time, the biggest high school football game in the country. All right. And Willie Spencer was the star running back for the Massillon Tigers. They bailed him out of jail to play in the game.
Wow.
This was back in the 70s, folks. Back in the 70s when I lived in Canton. Oh, yeah. You bet. I mean, this has been going on for time immemorial. People evading justice based on, a fan base, the Booster Club. It's been going on for ages.
You're right. I had a buddy of mine who got expelled. He was a freshman quarterback at Marshall, and he got expelled. And they were actually still picking him up and taking him to practice. And then come to find out, coaches were able to talk the principal to getting him back into school because he was a star quarterback.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
I was so shocked to see that.
Oh, I'm not shocked anymore to hear anything. I got to get out of here. It's 7:18, and this has been a great show, a great opportunity to talk about a wide range of things. Bronk, thank you. Ryan, thank you. And Steven, thank you. And back on Monday, okay?
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. And thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I'm going to get this up on the archive as soon as I can. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good weekend. Go Tribe this weekend. Let's hope Yandy Diaz gets some hits so that he'll end up
get traded to a nice team.
Yeah, where he can play every day. Hasta la vista, Pastor Eds. Good night.
Boo.
Boo.